Hey Doc, I am back and I am so excited because I have not done an interview in such a long time. But it is only fitting that I have my guest here. We've been going back and forth trying to schedule for such a long time, and I'm very excited to finally have her here. I have Dr. Sonia Singh. She is an internal medicine doc. She is a practice owner. She's a consultant. She's doing all the things, even a writer. And she is a mom just like you. And I am so excited. So, welcome, Dr. Sonia.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, tell me, how many kids do you have?
I have two. My son Remy is 5 and almost a half, and then I have a 1.5-year-old. He's going to be 2 in December.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
I didn't realize all kids were so close in age.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how long have you been married?
I have been married. I got married in 2018, and actually that's
Okay.
also when I moved to Houston. So
Okay.
what does that make it? Almost eight? No,
Yeah.
7 years.
I don't do simple math, so whatever you said is correct. Okay. Where did you grow up? Where were you before?
Yeah, I'm originally from the California Bay Area.
Mm.
So I grew up in Santa Cruz, lived in California most of my life, went to undergrad out there, and then lived 1 year in New York City for grad school before I went to medical school, studied nutrition, and then went to med school in San Diego, went back up to the Bay Area for residency, and then met my husband kind of on a blind date and ended up dating him long distance. He somehow convinced me to move to Houston, and so I've been here since 2018.
Okay, I have so many questions.
Yeah.
So you were one of those California people, because we just moved from California
Oh,
in the
I didn't
Central
know that's
Valley.
where you were from. Okay, uh-huh.
Yeah. So I'm from the Caribbean, went to school in DC, trained in Philly, then
Yeah.
moved out to Stockton, well, Central
Oh,
Valley
yeah.
for my first job and then met my husband, stayed there. And so, a lot of people don't really know anything about the Central Valley, but I'm
Yeah.
sure you do.
I
So
do.
I was in Modesto, then moved up to
Uh-huh.
Stockton. Yeah. So it's definitely different. So
Yeah.
I want to know how he got you down here. But first of all, tell me about this blind date.
I know. Well, so we have this joke that our moms have been dating longer than we have. So if you've ever seen the show Indian Matchmaking, it kind of had that
Yes.
vibe where our families were sort of in cahoots and had a mutual friend, and they were like, "Hey, we have a 30-year-old unmarried doctor child, and we would really love to meet your son, who is also an unmarried 30-year-old doctor." And, when my mom kind of brought the idea to me, I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, I live here. He lives in a totally different state. Like, I don't know how you think that's going to work. I had no desire to move out of California at that point. I also didn't like the idea of being set up by my family with somebody. Like, that was not how I pictured meeting a spouse. But at the time, I had just gotten out of a relationship and I was sort of like, okay, well, whatever, I'll give it a shot. So he sent me an email and just introduced himself. And I've gotten these emails in the past. And, oftentimes they kind of sound like job interview resume type emails where they're like, I am doing my fellowship here and I do research in this. And, and none of those were ever very interesting to me. And so he sent an email that was nothing like that and just didn't describe any of the usual, data that that people try to send in these emails. It was just kind of a funny, charming, short introduction email. And so I felt bad not writing back because I could tell he had like put some thought into it and he seemed like a nice, normal guy. So I sent him an email back and then we sent a couple of emails back and forth. And then eventually I kind of said, you seem like a nice guy, but like, I'm not really interested in dating long distance. Like, I don't really see this as the way I meet my partner. So, like, sorry. And I kind of just ghosted him. And then a week later, he was just like, I just wanted to send you one last email because, like, I like you. And I think, like, we should maybe try to meet up or something. And so, anyway, we went on a blind date kind of in LA and we just immediately hit it off. And after that, we visited each other every 2 to 3 weeks for over a year. And then we got engaged.
Wow.
So that's how I,
Wow.
that's how I ended up.
That is persistence.
Yeah.
I commend him because off of those emails, he determined that he likes you that much. That's so
I think
interesting.
he at least knew that he wanted to meet up. And to me, it didn't feel real until, like, to me, it felt like a pen pal or something,
Yeah.
until we met up, but it was only a few weeks of writing emails where before we were like, okay, let's actually see if this is something that works in real life. And so I went to LA for a job interview and I was staying with a friend, and then he had a vacation during that time from residence, or he was a fellow at that time. Yeah. So then he flew out to LA and I picked him up from the airport and we went on a date. And yeah, the rest is history.
Wow. I love that story.
And
And, the idea of being set up, I don't know, before it was like, oh, that's terrible. But it saves a lot of hassle, man. And
yeah, when I talk to my friends now who are still single, I just
yeah,
I feel like, I narrowly escaped like a very difficult dating scene. And I had dated in the usual ways of meeting
yeah,
people at school and, the normal routes. And it was starting to be the era where like online dating was kind of
yeah,
almost the norm. Like everybody
yeah,
was just starting to get online. And I could just never get behind that. It always just felt like I was meeting a stranger. And somehow, even in this case, it was kind of a blind date, but it didn't feel quite that way because he was so deeply vetted. It
yeah,
felt like everyone was like, he's really nice. He's like a serious guy, like wants to, a relationship. He's not messing around. And
right.
I just felt this reassurance that like a lot of our values and goals were the same.
Yeah,
And so there wasn't any question about that going into that date.
yeah. That's so interesting because it was around that time. Let me think. When did I leave residency? 2015. I was out in California by myself, and I also was weirded out by the online dating thing
Mhm.
until I read an interview, and I think it was from Aziz Ansari. I don't remember exactly who it was, but he was talking about how his parents had an arranged marriage and how he came to evolve in his thinking about meeting a partner. And whatever he said in that interview made me be like, you know what? I'm going to try online dating because if I met somebody in a grocery store, I don't know anything about them. It would be the same thing, except there's this volume, like it's a
Yeah,
numbers
yeah.
game, right? And so said, so done. I met my husband, and that just evolved the way that I thought about what ways I would be open to meeting people and different things like that. So it's just very interesting to hear the different beliefs and thoughts about it. And this was 2016. So online dating, the app that we met on is not even in existence anymore.
Is it coffee meets bagel?
No, it was this thing called Soul Swipe. It's like for Black
Yes.
people.
Oh, okay.
It was
Yeah.
like it was like Tinder, like a swipe
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember there was kind of always like an app du jour, like
Yeah.
that everybody
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
like Cupid for a while. And
Yes.
yeah, I also tried to open my mind to the online dating, but I feel like with that, you're so quick to discount people that maybe if you did
Yeah.
have a slow burn way to meet them in real life, you
Yeah.
would feel totally differently. So I just could never kind of get over that hump,
Yeah.
and then sometimes, the way someone presents themselves there is not exactly how they are in real life. Whereas if you meet them in real life, like they have no choice, like you're seeing them,
Right.
like, you're seeing how
Right.
they, so I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I feel for people who are like trying to meet somebody in the world now because it feels like a hard place to do that.
Yeah. It feels like a shit show, actually.
Yeah.
So yes. But we lucked out. Very happy about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So when you got engaged, how
Yeah.
was the convincing part? Had you already decided, okay, I'm engaged, I'm pretty much going to move to Houston, or was it like an argument, or what
No.
was it?
Well, it's funny because it was kind of like unspoken. We didn't really talk about it until we were officially engaged. And like, I remember the day after we got engaged, she was just like, so I will do whatever you want me to do. Like, if you really want me to move,
Strong start.
if you really want me to move here, I will move here, but the difference between us was like I had lived in a few different parts of California and a lot of my friends had dispersed. The Bay Area is like so expensive to live. So in that era of life, like late 20s, early 30s, like no one's really like fully like a lot of people had not really settled,
Yeah.
and he had been in Houston for like a decade. Like he had gone here for at Baylor for medical school and for residency and for fellowship. And so he had a lot of friends from like every phase of his life. And, I felt like he had really built a network here and was very entrenched. Whereas like I was I lived with my family for the last part of my residency, and then I bought a house like 5 minutes from my aunt and uncle, and
Yeah.
I was hanging out mostly with my cousins. Like my social circle in Northern California at that time in my life was basically my family. So
Yeah.
I sort of felt like if I plucked him out of his life and made him move there, he was gonna have to spend a lot of time with my family
Yeah.
and not even with our peers, like, not even with other
Yeah.
young couples, because I didn't have that network here. Whereas for him, like, his friends in Houston were all, around our age, like, they were all in the same phase of life, like, kind of married or newly married with, barely starting to think about kids.
Yeah.
So it just felt like his social circle here would have been a lot easier for me to kind of pop into and be a part of. And I'm also kind of an introvert, and he's not. So I felt like to pluck him out of that and have him kind of live this like kind of
Yeah.
small, close knit life would have been hard. And probably for me to move to his world would have been like good for me. So,
Yeah.
and I liked the idea of starting our life together in a place that was like a little bit more neutral and like away from our family. His family's in South Texas. So,
Mm.
I thought, this might be a nice place to start our life and it's less expensive. So just like
Right.
what we could do with the money that we had, he was still a fellow at the time, just felt like it was like a lot more manageable. So I kind of originally came with the thought of like, okay, like we're gonna try this out. Like this is gonna be an adventure. And he presented a very curated version of Houston. Like we were going to the Menil and the MFA and like eating at farm to table restaurants.
Right. Right.
He showed me the best of the city in
Right.
every visit that I had. So not that it's not, I mean, it's a great city and like, it's
Yeah.
a very livable city. So anyway, I moved and then, all of a sudden we both had jobs and then I started a business and then we had a house and a mortgage and kids and a dog. And now it's kind of like, we're not going
Right.
anywhere.
You're not going anywhere. This,
Um,
this is it.
yeah, and actually, I mean, on the topic of motherhood, a big part of the thing that keeps me here is, so I had my first baby in spring of 2020, which
Mm.
my husband's an ICU doc. I was doing
Mm.
outpatient primary care. I mean, I still do outpatient primary care, but um, that year was, I always call it like a perfect storm. Like it was COVID, we were both under like tremendous stress. We were like brand new parents. And coincidentally, three of his really good friends from medical school all were also having babies that year. So four of us delivered within a few months of each other. And now, like the connection and kinship that I have with those other moms and like those couples
Yeah.
feels like I can never like recreate that somewhere else
Yeah.
now because we're like just so bonded now because of that whole experience and having our kids at the same time. And our kids, like, they think they're cousins. They'll say, hi, cousin, bye, cousin.
Aw.
Because we go on vacations with them every year, like
Oh, nice.
each other for holidays. It's like a little clan. I think in Japan it's like a moai, like we're like
Mm.
raising our kids together and we're connected. So that's also part of the reason I've stayed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good reason because, I was calculating. I'm like, your family's in California, his is in South Texas. That means y'all
Yeah.
don't have family
I don't.
around, but you created one, you created your village, so that's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, my heart goes out to all of the other physician moms out there who are in that situation of dual physician household or even just like some other rigid, high stress
Right.
job and their partner with no family in the area because it's such a delicate ecosystem. It's like if my nanny calls in sick, there's nobody else. Like it's not like I
Yeah.
have someone on backup. It's not like I can call my mom or my mother-in-law and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
you can watch the kid." Like there's nobody. So it was
Yeah.
like in my traditional job, it was like cancel 20 patients or send your kid sick to school or,
Right.
like the choices are terrible. The choices are
Yeah. The
terrible.
choices are terrible. All right. So I want to go back to you're here. When did you actually move? Because y'all got engaged
Yeah, we got
2019?
engaged in 2017 and then we got
Mhm.
married in 2018. And actually, I moved like 2 months after the wedding. It was like I stayed at my old job. One of the doctors was coming back from a maternity leave, so I
Mm.
didn't want to leave before she
Yeah.
was to come back because I already knew I was putting a strain on the clinic leaving. Like in primary care, it's so heartbreaking to leave a job
Yeah.
because you know you we choose this field because we like those relationships and building those, and so it just feels like a breakup, like when you're leaving a place.
Yeah.
So anyway, I stayed until she was able to come back from her maternity leave, and then I moved and I moved and my medical license for Texas was like still in process, and then my credentialing for my job was still in process. So I didn't have a job. I was fun employed for like 3 or 4 months, um, which was honestly fun. I just got to see the city and explore, and we got a puppy during that time. And we used to live by Buffalo Bayou, so I would just like go to the bayou every day with my puppy. I did all kinds of home improvement projects and
Yeah.
my husband's bachelor pad. So yeah, that was kind of like a fun little break for me after, train all those years of
Yeah.
training and work and all that. So
I love that because I always recommend, like my clients, everybody, if you're switching jobs, take some time off. You'll
yeah,
never get that time back, right? You'll
it's
never,
impossible to do as a doctor in
yeah,
other scenarios. So we don't get
yeah,
sabbaticals really. So that's your
right,
chance.
right. So when did you decide to start having a family?
By the time we got married, I think I was 30, almost 32. So part of me was like, you just don't know. I have so many friends who have struggled with their fertility. I think after about a year of being married, we were kind of like, well, we should probably try this because, well, if it's not working out, like this could be a long
Yeah,
road. And I think we knew that we wanted to have more than one. And so if you kind of do the math, you think like, okay, I'm going to be like almost 40
yeah,
by the time we're having that. It's like, I would have loved if I had gotten married at a younger age to just have more time to ourselves, but
yeah,
it felt a little bit like there was some time pressure to try. So yeah, I think, after we were married for about a year, we felt like, okay, like maybe we should try this. But we were fortunate to not have to try for too long
yeah.
and a fairly like uneventful pregnancy.
Perfect. And how was the actual birth?
My first baby was like a textbook, like literally everything was like a textbook. I started having contractions at home, but I wasn't sure if they were contractions or not. And I remember I was about to go to bed at like 11 p.m. and I thought maybe I should just ask, like I should just call the on-call person or labor and delivery and
Yeah,
just ask. So I called I called and they funneled me to the labor and delivery triage nurse. And I said, oh, I'm having contractions. Like they're really regular. And like, I don't even remember how many minutes apart they were at that time, but they were pretty close together. And she was like, "So you're having them right now?" And I was like, "Yes." And she was like, "Okay, you sound way too comfortable. Like if you're not like in pain, it's probably just, Braxton
yeah,
Hicks. Just wait it out." So I said, "Okay." And then I hung up and like an hour later, my water broke in the bed. And I was like, "I think it's happening." My water broke sometime between 11 and 1. And then we drove to the hospital, and just on the drive to the hospital, they became like so painful and intense. And I was like, oh, this is labor. Like, this is what labor feels like.
yeah.
And so I think we got to the hospital between like 1 and 2 a.m. And I got like a chef's kiss, wonderful epidural. And I wish I remember the anesthesiologist's name. I could give him a shout out, but it was perfect. I was like so comfortable. And then
Yeah.
I had a normal vaginal delivery at 8 a.m. and the baby
Beautiful.
was there. And I remember like looking at the nurse and I was like, is that what? Is it over? And she was just like, yes, like the epidural is still working. Like, yeah, bad later, but like, yes, it's over. And the hospital was just really, really quiet because it was like right during the beginning of the shutdown. And I had stopped working 2 weeks before because I was worried about exposure to COVID and having to be, at that time, they were like actually still separating moms from their babies, like
Mm,
just in the very early days when if you tested positive. And so I was like terrified of that. I do a COVID test like a week before I was supposed to be due. So it was very quiet and peaceful. We had no visitors, and that was it.
how did you feel about the no visitors part?
I didn't know any different, so, like, it really didn't bother me, and we were also just so scared of the baby getting sick, that we were grateful to not have any
Yeah.
exposure, and, we had my parents fly out. um I can't really remember the details now, but I just remember that we basically had them also kinda locked down before the baby came, and they wore, like, they must have just looked ridiculous when they flew out from California. They were just, like, in, like, a hazmat type suit,
Yeah.
trying to, get here and, like, not
Yeah.
get anything from the airport or from traveling. Yeah, so both of our parents, were here when I came home from the hospital, and we had them masked when they were
Nice.
holding the baby for the first few days, and then eventually we stopped, and so, yeah, it didn't
Yeah.
honestly, it I guess it is weird now you know, if you had a baby pre-COVID, but, like, I didn't know any different, so, like, it wasn't a strange experience to me that, my close relatives, like, didn't see the baby for
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
imagine how for other people that would be weird.
Yeah. I'm glad that they were able to come, and I'm glad that they were on board with respecting all of the precautions that y'all
Yeah.
put in for them to fly in the hazmat suits and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That was really nice. So how was the postpartum period for you?
So I had a lot of trouble with breastfeeding and, you know, I think I was like aware that it was going to be hard, but I don't think I just fully appreciated how incredibly hard it had been. And especially because my pregnancy and delivery had just been so like natural and uneventful. I felt like, okay, yeah, this is just my body's just gonna do this. And it just didn't. And I think I could have done well, I know I could have done better with better lactation support, but I just got like the one visit with somebody in the hospital and I was like a zombie at the time. And I just remember her like, it was like that Charlie Brown teacher where she's like, "Bah,
Yeah,
bah,
yeah,
bah,
yeah.
blah," and I was like, okay. And then afterwards, I was like, I looked at my husband, I was like, what did she say? Like ice, heat? Like, what do you do when you're engorged? And he was like, oh, I don't know. I thought you were listening. And I was like, "Oh, great. Like, neither of us have any idea. I remember like getting engorged and then like ruffling through all the papers from the
Right.
hospital, trying to find, did she write ice or heat? Like,
Yeah.
couldn't remember any of it. And I was doing virtual, like I was doing a virtual lactation consultant because we
Mhm.
were so afraid to have anybody in the house or to take the baby somewhere. And that was just not cutting it. Like it would help, but like I needed somebody to put their hands
Yes.
in position and it was so hard. So I ended up like not being able to really breastfeed. Like I think I tried for 6 weeks and then he was on all formula after that, which of course I like have all kinds of mom guilt about. But like
Yeah.
don't think without hands-on support I could have done
Yeah.
anything else. The second go around, which was just couple years ago, I pre-selected a lactation consultant who came to my home. She was
Nice.
amazing. Um, and I was able to breastfeed for I think like 8 or 9 months. It was still
Nice.
really challenging. So like I just something about my anatomy and my supply and also the baby's like it was not easy for me, but
Yeah.
with a ton of support, I was able to do it for much longer. And now I recognize, like, given how hard it was, that I was like doomed back in
Yeah.
2020 because I really just I didn't have the right preparation. I didn't have the right support. I just like I had no
Yeah.
idea what I was doing. So
Yeah. And so with the second one where you were able to breastfeed for longer, were you still pretty stressed out because of how difficult it was? Like, how was the actual journey?
oh yeah, I mean, yes, I had a lot of stress about it beforehand. But, at the same time, I sort of was like, okay, if I can do any more than 6 weeks, I'll be proud of myself because at least like that's something. And the first time around, like the postpartum nurse immediately gave me a shield, a nipple shield. And
Oh.
I think that like actually led to like less stimulation and problems with
Mm.
the supply. And then the baby was just always needing the shield. Anyway, I just didn't
Right.
realize like all the problems with the shield. And
Right.
so the
What was the
second time
reason for her
around,
giving you the shield?
at the time I was like, "This thing is magical. Look what baby,
Right.
this thing latches on right away." Like, it just seemed like a godsend when she gave it to me because otherwise he was, like, having so much trouble latching, but I didn't realize how much it changes the efficiency of breastfeeding and the stimulation and all of that. So,
Yeah.
anyway, the second time around, we did not touch a shield. We did not go anywhere near a shield.
Yeah.
And my second baby was just also, like, more robust and, like, hunger like,
Mm.
he just
Yeah.
he was more motivated to figure it out. And my first baby had he had congenital torticollis, so, like, his neck couldn't turn in certain
Mm.
positions, so I could only get him to feed and or even try to latch in certain positions. So there's a lot of
Mm.
complicating factors. It was definitely something I was nervous about going in, but I just again, I was, like, telling myself, "Okay, you have a lot more support this time, you know a lot more, and whatever you can do is probably gonna be better than what happened
Yeah.
the first time." And that's good enough, like, I was not putting pressure on myself to get to a year because I just was like I just knew that that was honestly
Yeah.
realistic for me, so
Yeah. So how did you make the decision to stop at 8 or 9 months?
my body just kinda decided, like, my supply just kind of, started to dwindle kind of precipitously, and my period came back, like, it just
Mm.
my body seemed to be done with it,
Right.
and I could not keep up with the baby's needs, and so, we kinda started transitioning to formula, and then once you do that, it, like, pretty
Right.
precipitously just disappears,
Just
so
time.
I feel like it just kind of decided that it was time.
Yeah, it's a complicated. complicated relationship,
Yes.
very much so. And there's so much pressure. I feel like there's more pressure on us as physicians to do this thing because we know all the science and the reasons that's important. And sometimes I wonder, like, how can we reduce that pressure for people who are coming up or for ourselves? Because it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think now back to how many people I know who were just like very determined to like, I'm gonna get to a year.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, I admire those people so much. That is like so incredibly hard. But I think we have to do a better job of acknowledging that like that's a lot to ask of yourself. Like, especially when you are working full time and you have other responsibilities, you might have other children. Like
Yeah.
that is a lot. And like, yes, that may be like the ideal in terms of, a few IQ points and antibodies and so many other things, but your total energy, your mental well-being, your amount of rest, your ability to sleep, like all of those things are also like part of the equation. And yeah, for me, it was so hard that it felt obvious to me that like I could not do it.
Yeah.
I could not do it for a year. Or it would be kind of like taking away from other parts of my well-being and the baby's well-being for me to try to do that. So
Yeah. I think that last part is important and it's something that's skipped over because we are doing this for the baby. We're trying to get to a year for the baby. But if you are tired and stressed out and irritable, that is not helping the baby. Baby needs rested, happy
yeah,
mom and more than breast milk.
yeah,
I know that might be sacrilege
yeah, yeah.
to lactation consultants out there, but
I know.
I
Don't
said it.
say it.
So you stopped at around 6 weeks, and how much, if any, had that experience affected like your mental health and the rest of your experience postpartum?
I definitely had this feeling of failure around that issue. And my baby was kind of on the smaller side. He had all of the appropriate like growth milestones at that time, but he it was very hard to get him to take like the adequate amount of formula even. And so I think with every phase it was like, okay, well maybe the breast milk was just too challenging for him and like now we're going to do formula, it's going to be better. And then formula was hard and then we would try
Yeah.
different formulas. So like so feeding was like generally kind of a big challenge during that time. I think before I had a baby, I had this idea of like, I might be one of those people who just has a baby and just like decides they just want to be a mom all the time. And like, maybe I'll decide I just don't want to go back to work and I was honestly surprised at myself that I did not feel that way at all. Like
Yeah.
I had the baby and I sort of had this feeling of like, man, when I'm home with this baby, I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing and I don't know if I'm doing it right. Whereas like when I'm at work, I'm doing a thing that I trained for like a decade to do and I feel like I do know what I'm doing and that feels a lot better for me. So, I remember feeling like I had to start my maternity leave 2 weeks early because I had to
Yeah.
quarantine. And so I was upset about that because I was like, oh, I'm not going to get the full 3 months with this baby. I'm
Yeah.
going to go back when he's more like, between 8 and 10 weeks. And I actually felt like when it was time, I was like ready to go back. Like I just wanted adult
Yes.
time. Like
Yes.
I wanted to put on real clothes and I wanted to like talk to other humans and I wanted to like not be inside my house, especially because it was during COVID. Like we were not going anywhere at all.
Yeah.
So I was feeling a little stir crazy by the time my maternity leave was over. So I remember feeling surprised by that reaction that I like actually was ready and excited to go back to work. But then I went back to work and I just felt like, oh my God, now it's just my whole life is work and I have to like take care of this other human and continue connecting with him and bonding with him. And at the time, like my first patient was like 7:15 or 7:20. So I would usually like leave for work before 7. And so sometimes he was still asleep, like when I was leaving. And then my last patient was like 4. And then a lot of times I would still be charting until almost 5. And then 5 is like the worst time to drive home. So then like some days I was getting home at like 6 and
Yeah.
he would go to sleep at 7 or 7:30. And so I was really having a hard time figuring out like how these two things were compatible. It
Yeah.
just felt like I was spending all of my time and mental energy on work. And then when I would come home, there was like such little left for him. And I would have to scrape the bottom of the barrel just to like be positive and happy and, you know, whatever for the 1 hour that I got to be with him. And then of course, like, you know, there was nothing left for my husband.
Right.
Like that, you know, the last couple hours of the day were just like, oh, we have to feed ourselves and then we have to
Yeah.
clean up after ourselves and then we have to like get to bed at a decent time. And my son was also not like sleeping through the night for quite a while. Like actually, I guess we did sleep train him so he would like I think he was probably 6 months when we kind of started some sleep training. But even though he had a good bedtime routine, he would go to bed. For a long time, I felt like he would still have like a one nighttime wakening
Yeah.
like, in not a predictable way, which is like the worst type,
Yeah.
where you're like, oh, is he going to wake up again? Does he need something? You know, at that time, I was working zero point 0.8 FTEs. And so I had 4 full days of clinic. And then I had one admin day where I didn't have to go in. And I mentioned my son had torticollis. So like
Yeah.
we're doing on that one, like on Mondays, I would take him, I would do PT. Actually, a PT would come to our house. We would do PT and then I would take, he had a helmet. So I would take him to his helmet appointments. On those days, I felt like I was like full-time mom.
Yeah.
And Saturday and Sunday, I mean, my husband at that time was working a lot of weekends during COVID, at like the peak of COVID. And so my husband would be like, okay, on the days you're working, you're complaining about work. And on the days that you're at home fully with the baby, you're complaining that you're all just home with the baby. And like, that's all you're doing. And he was sort of like, I don't know what you're wanting, you know? And even at the time, I didn't know what I was wanting. I was kind of like, I don't know. I want to go to work sometime, but I
Right.
want to see my baby, but I also want to have energy for both things. And like, I just feel like there's no in
Yeah.
between, you know? And I was already working part time. So it felt like, okay, what else is there? Like, how can I do my job any other way? You know? Anyway, that was kind of what the first year,
Yeah.
year was like.
I'm so glad you shared all of that because I feel like we don't talk about that particular experience enough.
Mhm.
All you hear, even in our physician groups, and it's just like, I don't want to go back.
Mhm.
How can I ever leave my baby? 12 weeks is not long enough. But there are the people that are like, yep, I'm ready. I'm ready to go back. I remember when my nephew was born, I was taking care of him while my sister went back to work because she had to go back to work very early. And that was my first taste of that feeling long before I was a mother. I was like, I need to talk to somebody else, like somebody
Mhm.
who can talk back to me. This baby is cute, but I mean, come on,
Yeah.
like this is not enough. So I think that is an important experience to highlight because there are people who may be feeling guilty about the fact that they don't want to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom, especially if you thought that that's how you were going to be. It may feel like a little bit of a letdown and like maybe you're a bad mom or whatever, but it is a normal experience that is a variation of normal, I should say. So I'm very happy that you mentioned that. And then the confusion of going back and being like, wait a minute, I don't want to be here either.
Yeah. I think, yes. At the time, I had, like, a lot of, like, self-blame about it where I was just
Yeah.
like, "Why am I never happy? Like, why am I not happy here?" Because I always feel like, "Oh, I should be over there." But then when
Yeah.
I'm there, I'm like, "Oh, I feel so much better when I'm at work because, like, here, I just don't know what's going on." Like,
Yeah.
I really felt like and this is, like, a theme I think that's happened, like, a few times in my life. Like, I had pretty intense burnout as a resident, and I just
Mhm.
thought, like, "This is a problem with me. Like, this is my defect." Like, I am not handling residency well enough. Like, I cannot cope with the stress. Like, I cannot stay up all these hours. Like, something is wrong with me. And like the point I make now about this experience of being like a full-time mom, like I have patients who are in this position where they're full-time moms. Like that's what they're doing. And sometimes I think they're like, they feel strange for being stressed out or feeling
Yeah.
like they're like, I don't know. I feel like, why would I hire somebody to help me? Because like I have time, like I'm not going to a job. And what I constantly remind them is like being a full-time stay-at-home mom like that is also not natural. Like we are meant to raise our babies in villages and tribes with like
Right.
all these other people in that village helping us, you know? Like I remember my lactation consultant was like, you know, was having some meltdown in like the first couple weeks of breastfeeding. And she was like, listen, like this is what we're doing right now is like still not natural. Like you are
Yeah.
meant to be like having like the elder women washing your
Yeah.
hair and like somebody holding your baby. Like it's not normal what you're trying to do, you know?
Yeah.
So like don't beat yourself up. And at that time, I just could not see outside of like the self-blame and like thinking like, okay, I remember looking at all the other women in my clinic. My clinic was like mostly female at the time. I was looking at the MAs and the doctors and the admin. I was like, all these people have children. Like, how are they doing it? And like, what is wrong with me that I feel like this is so hard? And I just think we as society have just normalized that, like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that level of like guilt and frustration and exhaustion and misery is like just part of it.
Isolation.
It's just part of it.
Yeah.
And that's sad. That's really sad.
It is. It is. It's the isolation. And even if you are surrounded by people, because everybody wants to come and hold the baby and do
Yeah.
this stuff, if they are not actually helpful, you are even more isolated because you're
Yeah.
like, well, nobody is seeing me. Nobody is seeing what I need, what I actually need. Nobody's seeing how much I'm struggling. They either think I'm holding it all together or they think I'm anxious because I'm a first-time mom and they can't see that I am struggling. So, yeah, it is a very interesting place that we have come to where it's just this expectation that
Mhm.
being a stay-at-home mom is not a work. Like one of my favorite titles that I've tried to start saying all the time is a non-paid working mom, because that's what they are, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I love that your lactation consultant said that to you because some of them can be quite militant and make you feel a lot worse for not being able to breastfeed and stuff. So that was a very kind and wise thing that she shared with you because it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you are back to work, struggling. You're unhappy at work, unhappy at home.
Yeah.
What
I'm
happened?
happy all the time.
Blaming yourself. Your husband's like, I don't know what you want, woman.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
Yes. I mean, I was like truly miserable for a period. And I just remember there was like a several month period where I was just kind of like tossing and turning at night and just feeling like something has to change, but like
Yeah.
I don't even know what I want. And like at that time, my husband was just like, do whatever you want. Like, if you want to just quit, just quit. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that.
Right.
And he was like, if you want to get another job, get another job. Do whatever you need to do to like not be so unhappy.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I had never thought about starting my own practice. Like, my dad has his own, he's like been a private practice cardiologist for like over 40 years. And my mom was like the manager in his practice for most of that. And I just hated hearing them talking shop and about like hiring and firing staff and like all the
Yeah.
drama that was going on in the office. And I was always like, okay, I don't have a wife that's going to manage my practice.
Right.
Like, I am never going to do
Right.
this. I don't want to be like the HR person. I don't want to look at the payroll. Like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I always just wanted to show up and do my job and like take care of patients and not worry about all the stuff outside of medicine. And so I had no interest in private practice or starting my own thing ever. And I was exploring like other jobs at other places. They all kind of looked the same to me. Like, I was like, maybe it'll be marginally better. But like, ultimately at that point, I had worked at 2 different institutions and there were slight differences, but I could see how they all ended up
Yeah.
being very similar. And so then I started looking into kind of like tech startups. There's a lot of different health related telehealth type platforms, and some of them were interesting to me. And actually, now I think this is like so serendipitous. This is like was meant to be. The universe like did this to me. But I applied to a couple of these jobs and I was kind of excited about them. And I got like immediate rejections. Like, I hit submit, and then like within an hour, I got like a rejection for 2 of them. And I was like, what if I was like looking at my resume thinking like, did I put like
Right.
a swear word in here? Like, I don't, why would I like immediately be rejected? And I even asked my brother-in-law is like a physician executive. And I was just like, I applied to these jobs and I got these immediate rejections. And he was like, maybe they think you're overqualified. Like, I don't know. He just was like, who knows?
Right.
I realized like months later that I have a California license that was still active and a Texas license. And the California license renewal fees were sent to my old practice. And I just didn't know that they were not paid. And so
Right.
it was reading as delinquent. And so I'm sure they have some automatic thing that like
Right.
licenses. And since mine was reading as delinquent in one of the states I'm licensed in, I think I got an automatic rejection. No one even looked at it. And now I'm like, thank God that I did not get one of those jobs, because
Yeah.
I needed the push of like having no other options.
Yes.
To be like, I'm just going to start my own practice. And so it was one of those things where I kept looking around at all the alternatives and I just was like, none of these are going to work, like, or they're all going to be about the same. And at the time, I remember thinking, like, my sister-in-law, my husband's sister, she's a dentist and she has her own practice in Florida. She's the boss. And it's so funny because her girls, they're always like, oh, Harmon Uncle and Sonia Auntie, like, they can't just come on vacation whenever they want. Like, they can't come visit us whenever they want because, like, they have to ask their boss, like, if they can go on vacation. And our mommy's the boss. So, like, she can just when she goes on vacation. And it's so funny how they're so aware that, like, their
Yeah.
mom's the boss, you know? And I just, every time we visited her, I just remember thinking, like, she's figured it out. Like,
Yeah.
she is doing her job, her skill, her craft, and she's doing it on her own hours, on her own terms. Like, she runs a business, but, like, that gives her the autonomy and flexibility to, like, be there for all of her kids. Like, both of her kids are in sports and, like, have a lot of games and practices and whatever. And I'm always so amazed that, like, she's able to do all of that
Yeah.
stuff, you know? And she also, like, the first time I visited her, took me out to, like, she took me to her office and showed me it, which I thought was just, it was so cute, you know, compared to, like, big box medicine, like, it
Yeah.
was hers. Like, it felt very, like, homey and, like, this is her little practice. And I remember she showed me a little neighborhood that was right by the office, and it's, like, waterfront, and, you know, there's, like, these beautiful beach houses, and she was just like, someday, like, I wanna live here. And now this is, like, you know, 4 or 5 years later, they have built their own house, like, right there, and so she can walk to her office, and
Yeah.
I just was like, "Man, you have really figured it out." Like,
Yeah.
well, like, you've triangulated this little life for
Yeah.
yourself, you know, where your work and your kid's school and your home are all in this little pocket, and, you know, your life is just all cohesive, you know? And so I kept thinking about her and thinking, like, maybe that's, like, the way you do it, is, like, you just have to be in control. And so that's when the idea started kind of percolating. And then once I started exploring direct primary care, DPC, and I, like, joined some of the Facebook groups, and met some of the people that were doing it, I just immediately had this feeling of, like, oh, like, these are my people. Like, these people are making me feel like, huh, I'm not crazy for,
Yeah.
like, feeling the way I was feeling doing traditional medicine in the way that I was. So that's kind of where the turning point happened.
So your son is how old at this point?
He was not even 1 when I
Mm.
started exploring DPC. Like, I was having this feeling of, like, "Oh my god, this kid's getting older," and he, you know, when they become more interactive, I
Yeah.
just, the pressure of, like, "Oh my god, I'm, like, missing things,
Yeah.
and I'm not bonding with him enough, and, like, he's not gonna," you know, he's, like, being raised by my nanny. Like,
Yeah.
that whole thing was happening. So he turned 1 in May, and a few weeks later, I put in my notice with my job. First, I tried to make it work. It was, like, one of those, when you're in a relationship that you know is
Yeah.
doomed and you're just, like, trying everything to make it work. So first I proposed, like, a new role for myself at my job, you know, where I wanted to do quality improvement. I wanted to do kind of population health stuff. I wanted to do patient experience stuff. Like, I had all these things that I was
Yeah.
interested in and wanted to do. But there wasn't really a role that existed for that. And so I basically, like, tried to propose a new role where I would do less clinical time and more of some of this, which is sad because, you know, clinical medicine is why I went into
Yeah.
medicine. Like, this is still, like, my number one, like, what brings me joy, what I like to do. But it was like the way that you have to do it in traditional primary care is so time pressured and intense that I felt like I had to buy out
Back.
some of my
Yeah.
time to the other things. So I proposed this role. They spent like 3 months deciding about it, and then they sent me an email saying, "No,
No.
that's possible." So my immediate
Yeah.
reply was like, "Okay, I quit." And then
Yeah.
I had to work for 4 more months per my contract.
Oh my gosh.
So during that time, I started working on the practice, like, at night. You know, it would be like I would work the day, you know, be with my son, and then once he went to bed, I would, like, get on my computer and start, you know, talking to brand designers and pinning
Mhm.
things on Pinterest and talking to a lawyer and, you know, doing all of those things. So kind of getting the ball rolling.
I think it is very impressive that number one, they tried to make it work. And it wasn't just, this isn't working. I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. You tried different things to see. And then when they're like, no, okay, well, I'm out.
I'm out.
All of those things, that's like bravery, that's courage, that is very commendable. So I want to just acknowledge that because a lot of people would say stuck. So that's pretty cool that you were
Well,
able to
it's
do
funny
that.
'cause I look back on that the same way I look at those rejections from those
Yeah.
telehealth companies, which is like now I am so grateful that the job
Yeah.
was as inflexible and as bad. Because if they just threw me a bone and was like, "Eh,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
just pay you $20,000 more," I would have been like, "Okay, I'll stay." But like they offered me absolutely nothing, and so
Yeah.
they made the decision easier. Like I really feel it was like the universe was pushing me towards this thing,
Yes.
and all of those rejections and all just it being as hard as it was, pushed me into being brave enough to make this thing.
Yeah.
'Cause I 100% would have never done it if the job was a little more comfortable, if they
Yeah.
like if they just, gave in to some of my requests,
Yeah.
if the pandemic hadn't happened. I mean, if so many little things were different, I would have just kept chugging along. And I think so
Yeah.
many people are in that gray zone where it's like not bad enough that they're like, I need to quit for my sanity, but it's not good, you know?
Yeah.
And so they stay in it for years and years and years and never make a change. And so, I feel like for me, it was just like meant to happen that way. And
Yeah.
if I would see those people, I'm not even mad. I'm just like,
Yeah.
thank you for being stubborn and just saying no. Cause like
Yeah.
that was not the right place for me.
Yeah. I am going to lovingly push back on the release of any agency on your part or any, like, yes, it was a universe because I fully believe in all of those things. But the universe gives signs, God gives signs. Everybody has things that are presented to them, but all the people ignore it. They
Yeah,
are like
true.
on this path and they have to push through or they let fear take over. So I want to give you your flowers again
Well, thank
and just say that it was truly amazing that at the time you took those things as, okay, well, this is a sign. I'm not going to keep pushing. And even now that you can look back without regret, because both of those things could be like eaten away at your soul if you didn't look at it that way. And it's amazing growth and it's an amazing way to be. And I really think it's inspirational. So I just want to let that
well,
percolate.
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I will acknowledge that there were a lot of moments over those months that other people really gave me a lot of encouragement. My husband was constantly like, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to be happy. Like, do whatever you need to do. Even though I think he's by nature like very risk averse and was sort
Yeah.
of, is this going to work out?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like, okay, well, this is clearly not working. So we got to try
Yeah.
something else. And my brother in law, who I mentioned, he's a physician executive. And he had always been telling me, like, I don't know why you're just like working for somebody. Like, you should just be working for yourself. And he would say it, and I would think it was like a crazy idea.
Yeah.
And he just kept saying it until one day I kind of just believed him. And he was just like, you can do this. Like, I don't know why
Yeah.
you're like, he was just like, you're crazy for, letting all these people just tell you what to do. You can choose. Like, you have a choice in this,
Yes.
and that just felt like such a radical idea to me. And I think that is such a radical idea to so many physician moms and physician women, because we've been on this very straight and narrow path for so long. Like, if you think about how, in a lot of ways, the culture of medicine strips your agency from you, like
100%.
you apply for a match, like how
Yes.
weird is that, that after all of these years of like incredibly selective, like hard, rigorous academic training and, education, you do this thing and someone's just like, here's an envelope. This is where you're going to go, you're just kind of used to having this feeling where like you don't have a choice,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people would have just stayed in a job and thought like there is no other option, and even the type of practice that I wanted to build, I wasn't seeing a ton of in DPC, even in the DPC world.
Mhm.
And it was a really big like mental breakthrough for me to be like, okay, well, it seems like a good idea to me. So like I'm just gonna choose it. Like I'm still gonna do it this way that I want to do it. And now that's like what I just want. Like I want to infect other doctors with that mindset where it's like, no,
Yeah.
like you actually do have a choice in this.
Yeah. I love that the use of that word infect. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's what it
Yeah.
has to be.
Yeah. It really has to like incept in your mind. You have to get it in there that's
Yeah.
an option for you.
Yeah. And I just also want to highlight the importance of a supportive partner because, not a lot of people have that. And especially if the partner is risk averse and your husband's a doctor. If they are also on the straight and narrow, this is somewhat extra for us as women. But in general, it's a culture of medicine that this is what you do. this
Yeah.
is the path that you follow. So
Yeah.
it could have very easily been like, what? No, don't do that. Stay on this path. So I'm also very happy that you had that support and just the importance of the community with your brother-in-law, like all of these things that happened in your life and were available to you. It's not just Doc who's listening. It's not just that she's lucky. It's not just that, oh, well, her family is great. I don't have that. It can be created intentionally, right?
Mhm.
You can put yourself in a community of people that encourage you and push you and help you see things that you may not have thought were possible. You can curate your friends. You can choose your husband, choose wisely. Like Dr. Sonia said, you have control. You have control over so much more of your life and your situation than you realize, and that we are conditioned to realize. Like, I
Mhm.
am really hoping that we all get this idea so that we can just be happy practicing medicine or doing whatever else we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will say there were plenty of naysayers. Like
Of
my
course.
parents initially were like, "This is a bad idea. Like, why would
Yeah.
you not take insurance?" They had
Yeah.
all kinds of fears about it.
Yeah.
And I think the people who are closest to you and really love you the most, like they're also scared of you failing and how
Yeah.
that's gonna feel for you. And I
Yeah.
knew that that's where a lot of the fear was coming from, is just like they did not want to see me fail and have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But and even it's funny, like even some of my friends now will be like, "Oh, when you did that, I was just like, that's crazy. That's not gonna work out at all." I think in those early phases, you just have to really curate like what voices you're allowing to come
Yeah.
into your space. And I was really choosing to focus on the supportive voices and like the
Yes.
people who did believe in it. And the thing I would always come back to was just like, I don't know if this thing is going to work out, but I know really clearly what the traditional path looks like, or what my life looks like if I don't try this. And I think I would regret, even if it goes bad and I have to just go back like with my tail between my
Yeah.
legs to get another job. Like I would regret like just not even trying,
Try.
and
Definitely.
so that thought would make me brave. What a lot of people would say to me was like fellow primary care doctors were just like, I am way too scared to do what you're doing because I don't know if it's gonna work out, but like good for you for trying.
Yeah.
Like,
That
I'm
is a very
watching.
common thing.
Yeah, I'm watching because that's the secret dream, is just like
Yeah.
we're all scared. And so I was just like, yeah, I'm scared too. Like it might not work. And like you might, epically fail, but I'm trying.
That reminds me, like I tell my clients this all the time. The absence of fear is not required. Like you just do it scared.
Yes, I
You
love
can
that
be
phrase. I
scared.
haven't heard that phrase and I love it. I'm going to use that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So you're creating this vision, you're taking this leap. Not everybody. Some people are telling you it's great. Some people are telling you you're crazy. When in all of that, were you like, you know what? I'm going to have a second baby.
Oh, well, so after I had the first baby and I was working, I was like, there's no way a second baby can happen. Like, I don't even have time for this first baby. Like, I don't know where I could possibly have time for that.
Yeah.
So I was really having a hard time, and I'm an only child myself. So
Mhm.
I was having a hard time just fathoming a life of two children
Yeah.
with two working parents and all of that. When I decided to quit my job, it was when my baby was just barely one. And I kind of was like looking around and I was like, well, my body still hasn't recovered. Like there's diapers and everything's baby proof. Like maybe we should just get one, just get it over with. Like the practice is going to take a while to sort of build up. Like
Yeah.
maybe this is the time. And so I went to my husband and I was like, what do you think about like just trying now? And he was like, I'm not ready. And I was just like, what do you need to be ready for?
Right.
Anyway, so he felt like he was not ready. And I was like, okay. And then a year went by. And during that year, that after I had quit my job and I was just launching the practice felt like my baby. Like I
Yeah.
was so invested in it. I was so excited and energized by it. I also like, I talk about, my practice a lot in terms of like burnout and wellness, because in a lot of ways, my professional journey has been my own wellness journey. Like when I quit that job and had time, I started walking every day. Like I would walk with my son and my dog. Like I was sleeping so much better for the first time in my life. I had time to like prepare my own meals and had control over what I was eating. Like
Yeah.
just in a way that I really had not had since like probably medical school, like
Yeah.
before training. And so I suddenly got like so much healthier and like I
Yeah.
just felt so much better like as a human. And, I felt really good in my body for the first time in like probably like a decade, who knows? And then I was sort of like, maybe we'll just have one baby. Like I could
Yeah.
be just happy with one baby. Like I don't really want to, and the diapers were gone and the
Right,
packing
right.
in the living room, and like we were starting to have our house back. And so I was like, "Yeah, maybe we'll just have one and he'll never be ready and that'll be it." And I was kind of like at peace with that. And then he was like, "I'm ready." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So anyway, I had to do like a little bit of pep talking of
Yeah, yeah,
myself
yeah.
to it. I wanted my son to have a sibling. I didn't have that growing up. I didn't want to delay trying because again, I was like at that 37 or something at the
Yeah.
time, 38. So I was like, okay, if we're gonna do this, like now's the time. And it happened very quickly. And I remember like thinking I didn't even want to do the math of the due date when I
Yeah.
took the pregnancy test because I was like, in those early stages, you're like, oh, you don't even know if it's viable.
Right.
I
Right,
don't
right.
think want it too much. So I remember like the first OB visit, she was like, oh, your due date is December 28th, 2023. And I was like, 2023? Like in my mind, it was like, this is a next year thing.
Right.
So I had the baby in December of 2023 and I was well into my practice, had a pretty full practice at the time. And I feel like everyone around me was like, oh my God, how are you going to do it? Like you have a solo practice. Like it's not like you have all these people covering for
Yeah.
you. Like you're the one. Like, how's this going to work? And it was funny because I just felt so much more at ease with the whole thing because I felt completely in control of how
Yeah.
much I was working and when I was going to come back. And I'm like, big shout out to Dr. Rebecca Behrens and Dr. Sarah
Yeah.
Miller. They're fellow DPC doctors here in Houston. And they just created a little warm net around me. And
Yeah.
actually, it was funny because I messaged Rebecca and said, "Hey, funny story." She's actually also my PCP, so I told her very
Yeah.
early on. I was like, "I'm
Yeah.
pregnant. I'm gonna need your help."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Funny story. I'm pregnant too." And we ended up having our babies like within 2 weeks of each other.
Yeah.
But I covered for her up until the end, and she
Yeah.
covered. Like she literally saw one of my patients the day she delivered her baby.
Wow.
So, we managed to and then Sarah, covered for us, like, the remaining weeks that we were both out, and so we managed to cover each other, and even though I did start seeing patients, like, maybe 8 weeks postpartum, I was seeing, like, 2 a week, like,
Yeah.
I was really only doing necessary, urgent visits, like, no
Mhm.
physicals or routine stuff. All of that kinda got pushed until I was ready to come back full time, and it was, like, fine.
Yeah.
It was not a big deal. I feel like I still was able to take care of most of my patients' needs, and, it did not feel overwhelming to go back, and I got to have the dream thing, which was, like, not having that complete shift from full-time mom all the time,
Yeah.
24/7 to, like, full-time doctor all the time, all day. It was, like, a nice mix of, like, I worked my clinic schedule around my breastfeeding schedule. I
Yeah.
went home for lunch every day. I was still able to put the baby down for a lot of the naps. I have a nanny who's here every day,
Yeah.
but like I just was able to be present for like
Yeah.
a lot more than I was the first time around. So
Amazing.
yeah,
That's amazing. I love that was your experience. So you have a physical location,
I do.
right?
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like 6 minutes from my house. So it's a very
Well,
quick drive. I like go back and forth all day. So,
nice.
yeah, it's very convenient.
I love that. And yes, Dr. Rebecca is my fave. She is so interesting. When you said your son had congenital torticollis, I was like, the only other person I've heard whose son had that was Rebecca. I was like, oh, that was the first time I heard about that. Like I missed that in
Yeah,
my school.
listening to Rebecca's DPC story when I
Yeah.
was thinking about DPC was like a big part. Like I credit her so much with like I stand on her shoulders. Like I credit her so much with getting me to this point because I remember listening to her story and thinking like she's in Houston. She's just like me. Like we're in the same phase of life, and she's saying a lot of the things that I was feeling, that made me want to go off on my own and she's doing it, and
Yeah.
so like I said, my husband was sort of like, "Is this a thing that works?" And
Yeah.
I kept being like, "Rebecca Behrens is doing it," because like they both went to Baylor, I think, or
Oh, okay.
we had some overlap, so he kind
Yeah.
of knew of her, and I was like,
Yeah.
"It's Rebecca Behrens is doing this thing, so like it is a thing, and I am going to do it too."
Amazing. Yeah, it's good to be like, I'm not making this up. Here
Yes,
she is.
yes, there is a person doing it.
Yes. And that's it. That's the whole point of this podcast when I do interviews is so that somebody else can hear your story and be
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, it's not just me.
Yes.
and feel seen and feel just not alone. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story and all of your wisdom. And I want people to know, tell me a little bit more about your practice and how it is uniquely different from traditional DPC. Tell me all the things.
Oh, yeah. When I originally was going to do DPC, I didn't really have a big vision for it. I just thought, like, okay, it's going to be a practice and it's going to be good quality personal medicine. And as I started trying to make decisions about the practice, like, who is the ideal patient and like what does the practice look like and what does the branding look like and what does differentiate it? I was in this very unique phase of new motherhood where you're having this huge identity shift and this huge shift in your responsibilities. And I just had this profound feeling of like, it's crazy that you have this baby and literally your entire life changes. And then, like, you leave the hospital in like a diaper, and 6 weeks later, somebody's like, how are you doing? Are you sad? Are
Mhm.
you okay? Like, that's breastfeeding good. And like, that's it. It
Yes.
just felt like, man, like in this phase of life, like you really do need a PCP. Like you do need a advocate and a partner and a cheerleader and like somebody that's like really supporting your needs. And I would see how those women in my clinic were often kind of shortchanged because if there's a 65-year-old who just got out of the hospital for a CHF exacerbation next door, like I'm sorry, the 32-year-old with the UTI is not going to get a lot of
Right.
time. The 34-year-old who's dealing with anxiety is not going to get an hour. Like she's just not. And so when I started to think about who I could best serve and who I felt in that moment, like I wanted to focus on, I just kept thinking of like professional women and moms and people who were really spread thin and did not have the time to go sit in a waiting room for 45
Yeah.
minutes to get a 10-minute appointment with their
Yeah.
doctor, who wanted more of a relationship and who wanted somebody who did not make them feel crazy for feeling overwhelmed and
Yeah.
exhausted and stressed out. And so then I started, at one point during the brand design process, I was like, you know what? If I knew that that was the person I was serving, all these decisions would be so much easier. Like that, when I'm not worried about, well, how is the 50-year-old executive going to perceive what I'm saying right now? Once you kind of hone in on that demographic, it's just everything else feels like it's obvious what it should be like. And so I just made this decision to lean into that and say, like, this is a practice for busy women, busy with home, busy with children, busy with professional life, busy with school, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like a woman who values her time and it feels that she's kind of spread thin. I want to take care of that person. And so a lot of people were sort of like, you're limiting your demographic, you're limiting the potential patient population, like you're excluding people. And I don't exclude anyone. I mean, the practice is 30% female. I have a couple transgender patients. Like it's a very welcoming practice,
Yeah.
but I have chosen to say, like, this is a space for you if you are
Yeah.
that person. And I think that that spoke to a lot of people. And I think that having that niche kind of like differentiated me from a lot of other primary. In Houston, there's so many medical care
Yeah.
options. And so I feel like that was part of the success. And the other thing that's sort of unique, I mean, there's a lot of DPCs like this, but my practice is a micro practice. So I'm the only one. There's no staff. I rely heavily on AI and technology and efficiency to keep it that way. And so it's very, very small. I mean, I have a total of like 170-ish patients, and I never intend to go over 200.
Mm.
And I hope to never have to have any staff. I mean, it's not bad if you do, but I just prefer to work this way. So, yeah, that's what my practice is like.
Amazing. What is the name?
It's called Juniper Modern Primary Care.
Oh, I love that. Why did you choose that name?
And I know a lot of DPCs use like an adjective as, like elevated primary care or,
Mm.
integrity primary. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of wanted something that sounded like natural and that I just had good associations with. I liked some other names that were already taken. So this honestly was not like my favorite
Yeah.
name, but was good enough. Like I had to make a
Yeah.
decision and move on and
Yeah.
establish the LLC and everything. But I put modern in there because I really feel like primary care in some ways has not caught up with like the
Yeah.
advancement of technology. Like it was crazy to me that like up until like 2020 when we were forced to go more online that we weren't doing more virtual care and we were like my patient wasn't able to send me a picture,
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to emphasize like, look, we're going to harness technology so that it frees us to like do the personal aspect better, and like that's really what I do now. The practice does rely heavily on tech, but that's what allows me to just sit face to face with someone and pay
Yeah.
attention and be fully present with them because I'm not typing something or staring at a
Right.
screen or, making them fill out 20 forms before
Right.
I can come in.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
oh yeah, I wanted to emphasize kind of that piece of it.
Gotcha. So where can people find you if they're looking for this type of practice?
Yeah, they can go to my website, which is junipermodernprimarycare.com. I also just have soniasinghmd.com, which kind of houses all my different projects. So it's probably the easiest place to find me. I'm on Instagram at Sonia Singh, SoniaSanghMD. Although I am taking a break from social media for my mental
Good for
health, so
you.
I have not been on there for like 3 months.
Good
But
for you.
you want to
Yes.
look at my highlights and my reels and my other ramblings that were that are live there, you can.
Yeah.
And then if there's people out there who are interested in micro practice or in DPC, I'm always happy to direct you in the direction of resources. So I have a free podcast, which is the Micro Practice Mama podcast. And then people are welcome to reach out to me via email at sonia@micropracticemama.com.
Amazing. Amazing. And which part of Houston is the physical practice?
I'm in the Heights.
It's
Mhm.
gotcha. All right. So I wanted to touch on two other things that you said because there's so much gold, Doc, in what Dr. Sonia is telling you. And when you talked about the niching, like
Yep.
you decided to choose to serve busy moms, and when you made that decision, everything else became easy.
Mhm.
It reminded me of, yes, niching, because I'm an entrepreneur as well. It does make it easy. But on a broader sense, when you make decisions from alignment, like what is actually important to me right now in this season, not before, not my mother, not anybody else, things become very, very easy. Like alignment, values based decision making will make your life easy. And this is just one very small, very specific example of that. So I just wanted to highlight that because it is so, so important. And another thing, which is definitely an entrepreneur thing, but I think women physicians in general could learn from. When you were like, this name isn't what I chose, but it was good enough, so I went with it. Listen to me. It is good enough. Good
Yes.
enough is better than perfect. So I just wanted to highlight those things because there was so much gold and I have really enjoyed this conversation and I just want to thank you again for coming on.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that you've created this space. I mean, as you can tell, like you were talking about alignment, like physician mothers and supporting them and making them feel less crazy on the experience that they're having is a big part of my mission. And I think that's a big
Yeah.
part of what you do with your podcast. So thank you.
Yes, with my podcast, with my coaching, with everything that I am doing right now, it is for us, it is for you, it is for you, Doc, who's listening, so that you can be free, just like Dr. Sonia, and not start a micro practice or leave medicine like me to do exactly what you want to do, like what is aligned with your values that you have right now. That is my mission. So definitely check out Dr. Sonia's podcast, reach out to her if you're thinking about a micro practice. If you just feeling crazy and you have no fucking clue what you want to do, reach out to me. Schedule a free coaching session. This is what we do. We are helping you take back control of your life and live the life that you want, even if it is a beach house in Florida like her sister-in-law. Whatever it is you want. All right. So I will see you on the next episode of Stethoscopes and Strollers.